I don't know what to say now.
Is there anyone yet? No one. We're just waiting for people to join in. This is where we have that moment where no one joins.
That's all right.
Hang on.
I've been a pub singer before today. I've sang to one man and his dog and a pint of bitter at a bar. Like, it's all good. I am used to audiences of various sizes.
There we go. They're coming
Irene's
in
starting to join.
Let me pop my glasses on.
Hang on. We're just hi Mike. We're just waiting. We're waiting for a few people to join. But that idiot with headwear on is Dani, who is going to be taking Dani Wallace, amazing Dani Wallace, award-winning Dani Wallace, and author of what's the recent one? Fly Anyway.
This is the I Am the Queen Bee.
I Am the Queen Bee.
This is about overcoming self-sabotage. So how I overcame self-sabotage to fly anyway, and how you can too, which is some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, actually.
And has an amazing, if anyone's up in the morning and bored and needs a bit of a every day, Monday to Friday. Is it 8:30 or have you moved it to 9 now?
It's 9:30 now, so people can
9.
do the school run and then get back into their kind of Zoom space.
Perfect. The Show Up, Wise Up, Rise Up show on Facebook, which is Dani either talking to herself, which she's very good at, or amazing guests on that just really get you energized and feeling like you can go out and rule the world. So but Dani's going to do this webinar now on having the confidence to start your own business, and it's just confidence in general, because actually, you know, studies have shown that it is confidence that hold, well, especially women in the workplace back, but men as well. And we're very good at blaming everything else, you know, us women going, we can't get anywhere because men are stopping us. We're not, it's because we're stopping ourselves a lot of the time. So I'm going to hand over to Dani, but hi Helen. And if anyone has any questions as Dani talks, then fire them in the Q&A or fire them in the chat. Tell us who you are and what you're doing business wise, and then we'll have loads of questions at the end. Plus, don't feel like you have to really concentrate and take loads of notes, because all our webinars on the same day we do them go up onto the Sistr YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it then, and the whole tip sheets will be emailed out. So sit back and relax and just listen to the dulcet tones of Dani Wallace.
Now my tones aren't very dulcet. They are very excited. My tones today are super excited to be here and super grateful to be here. So hello Sistr, hello everybody jumping in to the webinar today and jumping onto the train, or indeed watching on the replay. Thank you for having me. My name is Dani Wallace and I am the Queen Bee, which is a very audacious statement to make, I'm quite aware. And I'm also quite aware that I've got one Santa that's turning up to the party and one that isn't quite as jazzy. So yes, it is a bold statement to make, but actually the phrase I am the Queen Bee is a reclamation. It's a reclamation of our birthright to success, to abundance, to good relationships, to all of the good things in life. See, I grew up on the council estates of Preston, and I was absolutely furious when I found out that the Queen was born the Queen. And in that, she was born into a relative amount of designated success and wealth and all of that, and I wasn't. And I had to realize that actually it was still all my birthright. I had to just be a little bit more tenacious about going out to get it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story, a little bit about what I do now, and then some tips for you if you are thinking of making any big decisions, I guess, having the confidence to do so. So if you're wanting to create a business, if you're wanting to, I hate this word at the minute, pivot your business in some way, shape or form because of these, and I hate this phrase, these uncertain times, all of this sort of stuff. If you are needed to make big decisions, often we get in our own way about it. Our confidence often is the thing that prevents us from doing so. So what I thought might be helpful today is if we can get a better understanding of that for yourselves, in our self-awareness, we can create more intention and we can create more control about our outcomes Are you all with me? Now, feel free to chat along with me in the chat bar or ask questions in the question and answer. It doesn't matter. I've got both boxes open and we are in conversation with each other. It's not just me kind of delivering a lecture, because it would be boring for everybody. So please do imagine we were at a round table and I was giving you some information. And if something, you know, if you've got something that strikes you as we go through this journey together today, then you could just holler up, give me a little wave and let me know that you're there and ask away. And I'm more than happy to answer as we go. So like I said, I grew up in the northwest of England. It wasn't abject poverty. I've got to be careful when I say this because it really upsets my mum. She didn't realise that we were poor. And it was only when I first started to tell my story that she actually started to understand that actually where we lived and where we grew up, situationally, generationally, we were on the breadline. Everything was a struggle. Also, there were things that were inherent within my family and the community and the spaces around me, because that's what happens when you're in pockets of places, is that you become the people that you surround yourself with. And this is why we, you know, are members of things like Sistr and so forth, is that we get to choose who we surround ourselves with. But when you're a kid, you don't get that choice. And the things that we experienced were things like poverty, were things like alcoholism, domestic violence. All of this was inherent. And I was, as a child, a sponge, as are all children, for these sorts of behaviours. And being witness to, quite frankly, a bit of chaos growing up informed a lot of my decisions and informed a lot of my self-worth as I grew older. And what I was doing is I was carrying around other people's stories. So as a child, we are all born perfect sponges, completely clean slates, for adults then to impose what has happened to them onto us. And we've got to be careful, as parents, if you're parents or any caregivers of kids, that there are some gifts that kids don't like receiving. And it's those shitty stories that kids don't necessarily like receiving. And that was one of the things that I experienced growing up. So for me, it was things like you've got to really, really work hard in order to get any kind of success. And when you do work really hard, the success is not really going to be proportionate to the amount of hard work that you do. The relationships, in terms of relationships, that, you know, men aren't going to treat you very well. If I look at men when I was growing up, there were very few good men in my life. And there were lots of these things. And as I grew older, I wanted to escape that. One of my stress responses is to flight, to run away from the situation. And what I did is I essentially ran away with a circus. When I was about 17, I didn't really run away with a circus per se, but I found that I could sing and that I was a performer. And one of the ways that I got validation was externally. So people may have thought when I was younger that I was a confident little girl because I'm an extrovert. We're going to go on to talk about personality types in a little bit. But because I was an extrovert, there was a misconception that I was supremely confident. That really worked to my favor when I was younger, because it allowed me to go and get performing jobs. And I performed all over the world. I was very, very lucky, working in lots of different resorts, from America to Finland and all the way back again. But people like us didn't go on to get jobs like that. People like us from where I came from didn't go on to become performers or entertainers or entrepreneur or successful or all of these things. People like us didn't do that. And I was carrying that story with me. And the whispers from my family was, come back to the UK and, you know, get a proper job. Has anybody been told this? Like, especially if you've created your own work, if you've created your own business, get a proper job. Like, define a proper job. And I think a proper job for me is turning up, working a set out amount of hours a week for somebody else, like being productive for somebody else. And I always wanted to be productive for me, but that was so far outside of the realms of understanding in my family that in order to create stability and roots, that I'd need to come back to the UK and get a proper job. But I did. And in my mind, trying to escape the chaos of how I grew up, I wanted 2.4 children then. If I was going to come back and put roots down, I was going to do roots. I was going to get a house and a husband and some kids and a job, and I was going to do it. I don't do anything half-assed. I don't know if you can get that from me, but I don't do anything half-assed. And I didn't do putting down roots in a half-assed way. So there was this husband-shaped hole, and I filled it with the first guy that showed me a bit of affection, which wasn't the wisest of choices, because I railroaded this poor guy. I'm telling you all of this for a reason, by the way. I'm not just like telling you my life. I'm not just spilling my guts to you this this Wednesday morning. Do stay with me. So I got a relationship, and we had a baby, and we bought a house, and very, very quickly he realized that he didn't want any of that. And a couple of weeks after we sent the invites out to our wedding, he just left. He woke up one morning, went, I don't want any of this, and he left. And you can imagine that left me feeling quite vulnerable, because I tried to take control over some of the chaos that was in my life. And as a result of being vulnerable, I got into another relationship, and remember all those stories that I have been carrying, that, you know, men aren't particularly that kind. And that's probably what your lot is going to be, that I got into a relationship with somebody who wasn't very kind to me. And that relationship turned violent, and I escaped the relationship. But because of that, I ended up homeless. So there's lots of things that happened. I had kids at the time, and all the while I'm holding on to this job. I got a really great job. I was working in corporate. I was working for some really great global companies in their training and development space. It was wonderful. The job was brilliant, and I was holding on to it for dear life, because as you just heard, underneath it all, my life had gone to shit. And people are going, yeah, Dani, you're so confident. You're so confident. You're such an extrovert. It's such a good way to be. And I'm thinking, my life is in tatters all the way underneath me here. I'm not making any good decisions about myself. I'm not making any good decisions about actually what I want from my life. I'm not singing anymore. I'm homeless. These people don't know this. And I'm confident because I'm an extrovert. And there's this expectation that if you are outwardly facing, if you get your energy from other people, that's a good thing. It isn't always. So I picked myself back up off the floor. I had a bit of a wobble, as you can imagine. And once I realized that I needed to take responsibility for everything that was happening around me. I'm not saying that I was responsible for being a victim of domestic violence, but I was responsible for surviving. I was responsible for all of my onward journey. I was responsible for every decision I took from there on in, because your reactions and actions dictate your outcomes in any given situation. I had to get to grips with that. And it was a real bitter pill to swallow, because I'd really sat in this, well, life's just happening to me and I'm just rolling with the punches here. And maybe this year you've experienced a little bit of that, a little bit of life is happening to me here. Oh, well, I'm just going to sit back and roll with the punches because there's nothing that we can do about it. But actually, if your reactions and your actions dictate your outcomes and you've got control over that bit, actually, you've got control over much more than you give yourself credit for. And it's trusting yourself enough to be able to listen to yourself and make those decisions. And that really is what I would like to speak to you about today, is about understanding yourself and accepting yourself in such a way that actually when you make those decisions, you can jump right in. That's where confidence comes from. See, confidence, extroversion and introversion all get mixed up. Where actually extroversion and introversion and ambiversion, I'll talk to you about that in just a second. I'm pointing this because this is the projector screen for my brain. So I'm going to write on here in just a second. So I'm just kind of forewarning you. So introversion and extroversion are just ways that you get your energy. That doesn't necessarily mean how confident you are. So you might be, see, told you, extrovert. Or an introvert. Or we've been given new language around this now, an ambivert. Now, it's a sliding scale, but this is where you get your energy from. And it's important that we understand this, because when we move on to what confidence actually is, you'll realize that all of this, accepting that this is just the way that you are, is really key to understanding what real and true confidence is. It's the quiet knowing and acceptance of yourself. So with extroversion, you will feel better or have your energy and if you imagine your energy is like a mobile phone battery, your energy will be depleted if you have to spend extended periods of time alone. So you can go and be in a group or crowd or more than one person situation, and actually by giving and receiving energy, it actually fills your cup up. So for me, when I'm feeling quite extroverted, I love to be around people. I don't even necessarily need to be the center of attention. Being extrovert isn't really about being the center of attention. It's about having your cup filled up by the energies of those that are around you. Introversion is quite the opposite, is that actually time needs to be spent on your own or in more solitary situations for your energy to be filled up, so that then you can go and give and receive in group and more than one person situations. It does not need to necessarily mean that you are antisocial or indeed not confident. Confidence is being okay with who you are and where you sit. So if you are a confident introvert, that's absolutely cool. And we need confident introverts, because not everybody is like a crackhead tigger bouncing around a stage like I am. Not everybody needs that. In fact, I know and have learned that that's quite draining for a lot of people. It's great as a little injection of excitement like now, but actually, what about the people who don't have their cup filled up in that way? How do we speak to those people? And when you're building a business, it's understanding as well. I'm a public speaking coach, so when you're speaking about your business and your mission message, you've got to speak to the different types of people. If you only speak to one type of person, you're going to put yourself on the back foot. You're going to alienate yourself from different types of people. But understanding that you can be a very unconfident extrovert and a very confident introvert was a huge revelation for me. And that actually, for all of you extroverts or indeed ambiverts, so people who get their cup filled up here at certain times and actually need to be on their own sometimes, they'll exhaust themselves in a group situation. Sometimes I don't want to make small talk. Doesn't mean I'm any less of an extrovert. It just means that my energy is a little bit low and I will slide into this particular part. And I wonder, for those of you that are watching along, where do you guys sit? Where do you sit along that sliding scale of introversion and extroversion and indeed ambiversion? Because my confidence was a hat that I used to put on. It was a mask that I used to wear. And that in itself is exhausting because it's an act. It isn't actually real. That confidence isn't real. And it's really important to understand that if you are out of alignment with where you're at and you're not okay with where you're at and you're seeking validation from things that aren't from within, then that's going to have a real knock-on effect to how you step forward in your businesses, how you step forward indeed in your lives and your relationships. This quiet knowledge and acceptance of yourself, just knowing that am I allowed to swear? Knowing that you're fucking okay. Just knowing that you're all right, that you are fucking glorious in all of your guises, however you show up, actually will allow you and empower you to be able to make the decisions that you need to make to move yourselves forward. So that's the myth of confidence. The other myth is that our personalities aren't adequate enough, that we are not enough. There's a lot of not enoughness out there. And again, these are stories that don't even necessarily belong to us. These are stories that have been given to us by other people. These are stories that have been given to us by our parents, by our friends, by our families, by the communities in which we grew up. And actually, our personalities often fall under a quadrant. Now, loads and there's loads of studies on this. I'm not going to tell you anything new. I didn't make this stuff up, by the way. Please don't think that I'm ever claiming to have made this stuff up. There is no new news. There have been studies done on this. You might have done things like, please let me know in the chat if you have come across things like Insights, DISC, MBTI, tetramapping. There's all sorts of personality profiling, but actually it often boils down to two things. One, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert or an ambivert, where you are on that sliding scale, and then where you are on this quadrant. Now, this quadrant consists of 4 different types of people. 1, results driven people. 2, ideas driven people. 3, details driven people. And bear in mind, this is all with a view to confidence here. This is all personality colors. What's that one called? So that is, it will be Insights. And also there's a network marketing one that uses colors as well. And I can't remember what that one's called. But yeah, DISC and Insights tend to use colors. There's another one out there with gems, like you could be a pearl or a ruby or a sapphire or an emerald. it's a quadrant, and it boils down to these 4 personality types. They might dress them up pretty with some flowery language, but still it's these things. And the last is people. So we often fall into, and we lead with one of these 4 personality types: results driven, ideas driven, details driven, or people driven. In order to have a really successful business, if you're building out a team underneath you, it's understanding that if you're a results driven person, then you're going to need some of these other people around you to make balance. When I first started out in corporate and I started teaching this sort of stuff, the real danger here is to start painting yourself with that I'm just this type of person. And actually, this type of person have lots of negatives as well. I'm an ideas person. I am what I like to call a fire starter. I get people excited about stuff, and every business needs somebody who gets people excited about stuff, right? But one of the potential downfalls of that is that the fire starters don't often finish things. So one of the stories that I would tell myself is I'm great at starting stuff, I'm really shit at finishing stuff. People don't take me seriously because I show up with dealy boppers on. People don't take me seriously because I am a happy extrovert, and that actually I am incapable of making astute business decisions based on my personality type. For results-driven people, they may be seen as, or read themselves when they understand this about themselves, as aggressive, as without thought for anybody else around them, because they're only driven, they are goal-oriented, they only see what is happening on the other end of everything else. It doesn't matter about the details, not bothered about getting excited, just want it fucking doing. And that might, Emma's smiling. So results-driven people, when you do this kind of work, you think, oh, I'm a results-driven person. Sometimes you might get hung up if you are not confident in that not being the best bit of yourself, when actually it's the strongest bit of yourself. And it doesn't mean to say that you can't put on these other hats when you are required. It just means that when you are leading with your strongest trait of your personality, that's just where you lean. Details-driven people, these are the people that want to understand how you get to the goal. Like, what was the process? In fact, what was the process, so that next time we do it, either we can make it better or we can avoid doing things that may not have necessarily worked. One of the detriments of that is you may be considered boring. Like, who wants to, I'm an ideas, but I don't want to know about details. Don't get me hung up in that. I'm not asked. I'm too excited and goal-oriented. I want to get the thing done. I'm excited about getting the thing done. But we need details people, and you are absolutely valid in bringing yourself forth into this world of business. We need you. People-driven people. Now, these people often work in HR, or not, as the case may be sometimes. These are people that make sure that everybody's okay in the run-up. Everybody's all right. Like, they will ask you the how are you questions. How do we feel about this, everybody? And it's interesting, when I became a parent, that I led very, very heavily with this. And then when I became a parent, suddenly that bit of my personality bubbled up. And it's interesting and important that you realize that all of these things are interchangeable dependent on what setting you're in as well. In a business environment, I'm very results driven. I get excited by things and I create ideas, but actually I'm thinking maybe 3 or 4 years in advance. I'm thinking about how to get there as quick as possible. If you are particularly weaker in an area, being able to get somebody in, I'm pointing at details like this because I need somebody in my life who's details driven. Somebody to tether me to the ground to make sure that actually we're doing things in the right way, that not just everybody's looked after, because I'm a people person and I get to do that, but that all of the structures are in place. So when you are looking at yourself, you're thinking, okay, so where is this confidence coming from? It's actually owning the shit out of where you sit on this sliding scale, this bubbling mixture of personality types. What hat do you need to put on? And where do you sit when you're at your most comfortable, when you shine the most? Like, if you've ever heard of strengths-based leadership, it's understanding that you're leading from the front with your strength, but you're building your team around you who are super strong in all these other places. And if you are a one-person band, that you're going to need to put the hat on until you can get someone in. But thinking that because you fall into these sliding scales, introvert, extrovert, results driven, ideas driven, that because of the potential pitfalls of that you're not valid, that actually, if I'm an ideas person, no one's going to take me serious. I had to realize that actually I'm really clever, that actually I've got great ideas, and those ideas yield results, which is brilliant. I just need some help with them. I get someone in. So this quiet knowledge and acceptance of yourself is where true confidence comes in, and it becomes a much still experience. Confidence becomes much more quiet and much more peaceful. Confidence is not necessarily about striding forth into a networking group and having to be the loudest person in that room. It's not about making a decision and thinking you've got to start banging a drum about it. It's about making a decision and being so strong in that decision that whatever your goals are, whatever your business is, it becomes magnetic to you. It's allowing yourself to listen to yourself, to get really fucking quiet and go, do you know what? Where is all this coming from? It's coming from, I point here, you can't see it. It's coming from here. You're being led from your gut to wherever it is that you're going. And it doesn't matter actually what type of person you are. It's interesting to know. It's good to know. You got to make sure that knowing these things doesn't knock your confidence. It empowers you. When you know these things, you can build your team around you. And when you know what it is that you want to do and you trust yourself and listen to yourself, it becomes so magnetic, you can't not do it. And that's why when you find the thing that you are most passionate about, the work that calls you the loudest, and why now is an incredible time to start creating those businesses, is that you really get to listen to yourself and have that business become magnetic to you. Then confidence suddenly doesn't become an issue because you believe so truly in what it is that you want to do and in your capabilities around that, you can't help but do it. So in terms of understanding yourself and understanding confidence, I did want to do a little bit around that. But then there's the next thing. So you've made the decision, you've made the leap, and it's all very exciting for everybody involved, namely yourself. I try telling my husband about the things that I get up to. He doesn't get as excited about me. I need friends like Emma and Emma in my life to say, I'm doing something really exciting, just so they can go, it's really exciting. Having a network of people like you guys around me so I can say, this is an exciting thing. Sometimes people in your closest circle don't really get it. Once you've had that kind of revelation, you've decided to go forth, you've trusted your gut, you've trusted yourself, you've got that quiet knowledge, knowing and acceptance of yourself. Well, what the fuck do you do then? So what I thought might be helpful is I want to share with you. So I go live every morning at 9:30 on Facebook, the Queen Bee Dani page. And the show is called the Show Up, Wise Up, Rise Up show. But the phrase show up, wise up, rise up actually came from me really wanting to hang my hat on a system that I could apply to any aspect of my business, regardless of where I was, that was going to elevate me, that was going to move me forward. So whether you're just starting out or whether you're a 7-figure earner, actually utilizing or creating a system or plagiarizing a system and giving it a sexier name was something that I thought was going to be helpful. And showing up, wising up and rising up was the clearest way that I could see to help start my business, but then maintain the trajectory of growth that I've had since. And the trajectory of growth that I've had because I apply this has meant that in a very, very short space of time, I've been able to have some incredible experiences and incredible growth. And going from £300 in my back pocket 2 years ago to a multiple 6-figure business is by using this. So I thought this might be helpful whilst we're talking about confidence. It's good to not just maybe think about the soft skill of it and actually apply something that will work. Will that be helpful? Is that okay? Can I share that? Cool. So 3 sections. You've got show up, wise up, and rise up. Now, rising up is your goal, wherever it is that you want to go. For me, it was a house. So I told you a little bit earlier on in the conversation today that I was homeless. And the house that I live in now, that I'm sat in here, was the house that I had to move into back onto the council estates because I didn't have anywhere else to live. And I was very lucky that some friends had bought a house and said I could move in without a deposit as long as I leave the gaff as I found it. It's in the middle of a really, really rough area. And I regularly get things like my windows put through, the tires are slashed and what have you. It's not safe. Kids can't play outside. It's not a very safe area. However, it served its purpose. But on my rising up, as I built my life back up, I wanted to buy a house, and that's what I've been working on. So for me, rising up has looked like providing safety and security for my family by means of buying a house. So being very, very clear on my goals and knowing how to get there has been important. So if you've got goals, there are two things that need to happen. The first is that you've got to show up for it. And the second is you've got to learn how to do it. And generally, if you don't have something, there's something missing here and here. So I wanted a nice big house with a nice back garden, an hot tub, and all of these nice things. However, I wasn't showing up for it in my previous guise. I was doing as little as I could to get paid as much as I could. And it wasn't very much because I was singing and gigging up and down the country for not very much money. So I was showing up. I didn't know how to make the kind of money to get the house that I wanted. I didn't know how to do that. So I was missing something. I had no problem showing up. I had no problem singing my shoulda, coulda, wouldas up and down the country, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, show up all day long. But it wasn't happening because I didn't know how to bust that glass ceiling. I didn't know what I needed to do. I didn't know processes. I didn't know who I needed to surround myself with. I didn't know what mentors that I needed. So I had to go and wise up. I had to go and learn. I had to go and find out. So wising up can look like processes. It can look like your tribe. Sister's a great example of this. It can look like the people who you hang out with and that are all forward facing. I find it very difficult now, actually, to speak to people who I've grown up with about what I'm doing right now. They just don't get it. They don't understand the sacrifices that you make when you're building a business. They don't understand that turning up to a Zoom in Daily Boppers is part of my work day. They don't know. It's hard to explain when they don't understand. So I've got to surround myself with people like you guys who are absolutely okay with me turning up in Daily Boppers and writing on my projector screen of my mind here. Because it's going to be beneficial to everybody. We're moving forward. We're forward-facing people. We're excited. We're confident people because we know ourselves now, right? So the tribe, the people that you surround yourself with, are the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. The next thing, mentors. My God. Having mentors or people that have done the thing that you want to do make it so much easier and much more quick for you to get to where it is that you're going. Because otherwise you're fanning about in the dark. But there's already been a path paved for you. There are already people who are where you want to be. Go and seek them out, because more often than not, success leaves clues. In much the same way that Emma's set up Sistr, that, you know, we are a bunch of successful people or people that are on our way to success, leaving clues for each other, sharing ideas with each other, creating this microeconomy of awesomeness. So finding mentors, people that have done the thing, that whatever level that you're at. In fact, I'm really blessed in the job that I do, that I get to work with multimillionaires and I get to work with people that are just starting out in business. And there is nobody at any level of success that doesn't have a mentor that's at the next step ahead, or who hasn't had a mentor. So as part of your wising up process, seeking out the people that are doing the thing or have the things that you want here, by reading their books, by reaching out to them, even by joining their Facebook groups, by joining their networks, by getting into their world, they tend to leave clues. Most good and kind, successful people do, because they realize that when they get up there, there's loads of success for everybody. It's not a finite an amount of success. There's fucking shitloads of it. We just need to remember and realize and go and find it. So that tenacity stuff I was talking about earlier on, I know the Queen was born the Queen. This is part of your tenacity to go and reclaim your birthright to success and wealth and abundance, all those nice things. So your processes, your tribes, just software that you need. It could be that you need technology. What is it that you need to learn or implement? And then the showing up. You might be a very wise fool. You might have surrounded yourself with all of these fabulous things. You might have done loads of courses. Who's done loads of online courses and then done absolutely shite all with them? Who's invested and then not done the things? It's all well and good you being very wise, but you could be a very, very wise fool if you don't do this bit. So in order to get to here, and you've got this bit, then good, well done. Who do you need to show up for now? How do you need to show up? Where do you need to show up? What do you need to wear when you get there? How do you need to talk when you get there? What does showing up look like for the person that has these things? And it's all very well you having all these. You're a very, very wise fool if you don't have this. So in order to rise up, you've got to really understand, be very, very clear. It's absolutely pointless setting a coordinate in a sat nav if you don't know your start point. So understand where you are, know where you're showing up now, how are you showing up now, do that piece at the beginning, where are your foundations, where do you want to be, what does the destination look like? So then you sat nav and know how to get there, and this and that is the journey. How do you get there then? What do you need to know, and how do you need to show up? And then when you get there, when you do that thing, you get to do it all again. Then what does rising? You can apply this to any aspect of your life, in fact. Any aspect of your life, you can say your relationship, you need to rise up in your relationship. I've got a really shitty relationship. And actually, you're just not communicating. So you know you need to communicate, but you're not communicating. Right, well, guess what you need to do? You need to show up. I'm just learning, even now, me and my husband have been together 10 years, and I'm now learning that actually, in order to have the conversations with him that I want, I can't land anything on his lap. I've got to make an appointment to speak to him. But actually, when I make that appointment to speak to him, he brings himself to the table and he's ready to communicate. It's a revelation. But I now get to show up and save my marriage, which is brilliant. I've got to make an appointment to do it. But it's understanding how I need to show up for my marriage if I want it, in order for me to have the happy marriage that I desire. So we're wising up. Am I missing something? Do I need to learn something about myself or him? What do I need to learn? Well, I've learned I need to make an appointment. We need to book some time in, just create some space in time. I don't mean actually like get your diary out at 2:00, we're going to talk about this thing. But actually, me learning that I need to prepare allows me to show up for the marriage in the way that will enable me to have a happy and healthy. But same with your kids, same with your finances. If you want £1 million in the bank, that's brilliant. I'm going to show up for £1 million every day. But if you don't know how the fuck are you going to do it? What are you going to sell? Who are you going to sell it to? All of this sort of stuff. So by showing up, wising up and rising up, and that being a consistent thing, you check in with yourself every day. Actually, when you make this decision to create your business, grow your business, scale your business, whatever it is that you want to do within your area of the world and the internet, actually, if you apply this every single day, you can only rise up. You can only have an upward trajectory. And I think after all of those bombs that I've been dropping for you right there, that takes us to our destination. So I hope that you found that helpful. Are we all right for time?
Yeah, we're all good for time.
Amazing.
Does anyone, I think everyone's just really busy at the moment, aren't they? We had 40 people booked on this one.
They can watch the replay, it's fine.
Yeah, that's the thing, to be honest. Most people watch the replay and everyone's being dragged into everything at the moment, aren't they?
Yes.
Left, right and centre, pointless calls and things, just so everyone feels organised. But does anyone want to come on and chat with Dani, ask us some questions? Because we've only got five people on now, so we can throw you in the mix.
You could capitalize on this time, like it's a dear due to opening 1-to-1, like come through.
Yeah. Does everyone, all 5 of you want to come in? Yes. Yeah, we've got one.
I'm going to put you all in.
Come through, Irene, Amy, Fiona, Helen, Yale, hello.
Yes, wanting to be bold. This is amazing. I think that, I think for me, the takeaway is sometimes we show up, but we don't rise up. We rise up, but we don't show up. I think this is brilliant, knowing all that. For me, I've just started my coaching business and I do a lot of chemistry meetings. And for me, I think that is something that I would take in, that knowledge that when I sit with somebody, I need to be able to see whether they are a details person, an ideas person, a people's person, so I can serve them well.
Right.
So all these information is brilliant. I'm glad that I registered, and I'm definitely going to read the book.
Do it's a romp.
Yeah. Do you know what I've realised? It's made me realise, why my business partner and me work well together. I'm the second. I'm the ideas and people side. He's the detail. And what was the other one?
Results.
That's him. He's those two. I don't care about those two. I'm the other side. So yeah. So the business would be down the pan if I didn't have him involved.
I'm I married a details person. I didn't, and it wasn't even intentional. Like, it was just that it made sense. He makes sense to me. And also, it equally infuriates me. I was saying, I was doing another training this morning about buying a telly. We've just bought a telly for our new house. And I just want to buy the damn telly. Like, tell me how much I can spend. I'm going to go buy a telly. But he wants to make sure that we're getting the money that we're spending, what the pixels are. He wants to know all of
and wangle the new deal on
right.
Oh,
just renew it.
Helen, how's your business going? I know you're like working out what...
So I'm basically shifting, sort of focusing to like helping startups through coaching and some training with a company called Startup Sherpa. But I think two things I just wanted to ask you, Dani, if you don't mind.
No.
One was, with that quadrant, how do you get to that point where you find out who's in which one's your lead? I know which one is mine, but I'm just thinking about people I work with maybe.
There's lots and lots of like, even just like little free quizzes. You can go on business balls and there's like little quizzes that you can do that lead them in that direction. But often when you start to break that down, the language that results people use are very much based on the end goal of anything that you're talking about. So what am I going to get out of this? You get to the point. They often they're not bothered about they'll do this with their hands. They're not bothered. Details driven people will ask you a butt ton of questions that you don't even think they're relevant, that are just bad, but they need to know in order for them to lay the foundation of strength on anything. Ideas people, they hit you like an oncoming train.
That's me. I'm one of those. I know exactly what they look.
So excited by life, like they can't help themselves. But what they do, they're great when you've got them on a team, because actually whip everyone up into a frenzy. They get everyone gets excited about getting the job done. So for people, people again, they'll be asking the how are you. They'll be concerned with what impact is this going to have on this person if I do this. So they'll have to think about the personal impact. What's the potential collateral damage here? What's that going to look like? So when you're introducing these concepts, there are real quick quizzes that you can find. I mean, you could buy training packages and stuff for people. I'm sure there were people even within the network that offer this as like training, but Google's your friend. It is a quadrant and it's quite easy if if you can identify it just by me being quite flippant with it. Most people can. It's just people add lots of layers onto it in order to make lots of lovely money.
And then the second thing you mentioned at the beginning about self-sabotage, and I think it's something that I do, especially if you're going like you push yourself into that next level and then all of a sudden something comes up, and I just wondered what you do to try and help that. Or
so it's understanding, Helen, what your self-sabotaging behaviors are. So again, they will often fall into one of four things. So when you're under stress, and sometimes success is stressful, so your body, the limbic bit of your brain, the bit of your brain that is still an animal, whether we like it or not, for all the constructs that we've created for ourselves, we are still an animal. That our next level of success is something that we haven't experienced before. So for me, having money was something that I'd never experienced before. Freedom was something I'd never experienced before. So it became unsafe, even though I really wanted it. So what I would do is I would sabotage. When those things became very real, I would sabotage with a stress response. And those stress responses are fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So often, so fighting for me would be like rampant workaholism. I would run myself into the ground because I was so frightened of not achieving that success, or I was so frightened of not being able to prove myself that I would grind myself into the ground and threaten myself with burnout and become so exhausted that I couldn't carry on. And actually then I become a self-fulfilling prophecy. No matter how much I work, I'm never going to achieve that success. And actually I needed to learn that you don't have to necessarily work super duper hard in order to achieve success. You just have to work smart. You have to be clever. You have to plan it out. You have to know these things. And then actually success then started to become easy, and it doesn't have to be a fight. So I didn't have to fight. That wasn't a stress response that I required anymore. Another way that people respond or self-sabotage is by flighting, by running away. And that's sometimes I would do that. Even if you talk about my husband, having an argument with my husband, arguing in my world isn't safe. So I would remove myself from the situation, just leave, just pack up the kids and go and stay in an Airbnb. So I didn't have to have the conversations with him. And I would run away from that situation. Freezing is another one when we're a self-sabotaging behavior. When you procrastinate or procrastinate or procrastinate or procrastinate is a one that I do.
I love those.
is a self-sabotaging behavior, because if I wasn't doing those things, then I would have to do the thing that I was actually scared of, which is that next level of success that your body doesn't realize is actually very safe. When you get there, you think, oh, fucking hell, what was I frightened of? It's actually okay here. But we don't know that. So then what we do is subconsciously we get in our own way, especially like me, is people like us don't do that. Well, people like us don't do that. That must be unsafe. So I mustn't do that. I must do everything. And we look for confirmation bias as well. So we look for reasons to prove ourselves right. So then we'll sabotage ourselves. So again, we sometimes do this within our physical health. If we're talking about where we seek our validation, if we seek our validation externally and you're not feeling very worthy, then you might do things or not do things with your body that will potentially have you not be able to receive that validation externally. And again, when we go back to talk about confidence, that's that you've got to know yourself and love yourself and acknowledge yourself and accept yourself in order to be able to make any big changes, such as avoiding these self-sabotaging behaviors. Another one is fawning. So I would stay in an abusive relationship and actually try my damnedest to stay with this guy and have him love me because anything else wasn't safe. So can you see, like with those self-sabotaging behaviors, they're often stress responses, and they are often, the fear of your next step, and you'll get in your own way in one of those triggers. It's worthwhile having a look at yourself and thinking, okay, am I fighting here? Is this aggressive? Am I running towards something? Are you running towards the fire in a way that actually you're probably going to get burnt? Are you running away from the situation? Are you freezing? Are you standing still because here's safe? We know here's safe. We've got this far and we're alive and that's okay. Or furthermore, are you overgiving? Are you overgiving and you're almost giving too much, and then you start to devalue yourself, and that in turn knocks onto your success, because if you devalue yourself, people won't pay what you're asking them, or they won't see the value in what it is that you're doing because you're not charging accordingly. So another self-sabotaging behavior, sorry I bang on about this because I get so passionate about it.
No, it's great.
Is that people won't price themselves accordingly. They will undervalue themselves and then wonder why the world and his dog isn't beating. We're trained from this whole commercialism situation that in our supermarkets they have price wars. They knock each other down till it becomes pennies that you're paying. That actually that's not the value. People only see the value in that because they're eating and they need to eat in order to survive. For everything else, it needs to have value. That if I've got to put skin in the game to work with you, then it's got to be valuable. Surely it is.
You've got to take all emotion out, haven't you? Which we're not very good at. As women, where
as beings,
we don't have that comment like, well, why would anyone rate us like that? You have to take yourself out of it. Go, well, what would I be willing to pay if this was me looking for like top end price on this? What would I be willing to pay? Fine, that's what I'll charge it at.
Yeah, and if it solves the problem for your people, for whoever it is that you're serving, then they will pay it. And there are people out there that were willing to. I remember being stood on stage a couple of years ago, and it was like something like £600 to work with me for 6 weeks, and no one was. I was like, I felt sick saying it, like this. And now I charge up with £6,000 to work with me. People pay it, and I've got full books. And it's
you've just kept going up, going, this is hilarious. The joke is going on.
Yeah, like what? People are paying it. Fucking hell, all right then. And it isn't that. It's that you come to where energetically the exchange is right. How much work and how much you're going to give to people and how much they're going to get value wise from you. That becomes, you tend to feel, I was saying about being led by your gut on things. It didn't feel right to charge that amount. It did at the beginning. And then after a while, you realize just how much fucking work goes into looking after people and doing the things that you're doing. And then, energetically that price will start to level itself out until you feel like, right, I don't think I get to the point where I start to charge too much. I'd have to come back, and people will stop paying as well. So it happens in both until it gets energetically correct in the middle there. Yes, Helen.
We've lost Fiona. I was going to answer her. She had a question just now.
Oh, she did. I was just.
Oh no, she's back. We were about to answer your question, Fiona. If you want,
I'm going to let her put her camera on, hopefully, if she'd like to. You don't have to, Fiona.
I have mornings where I don't want my camera on Zoom. Who needs that?
So if you're able to unmute yourself to enter the fray, Fiona, please do. But you're asking, I'm so confused about whether I should take the big step and start my own business. I think it's my age that makes me so scared. What is it specifically about your age that makes you scared? Do you feel like you're too young or too old?
Is she there?
Is she there? I'm gonna answer both.
You answer. Yeah, you answer.
I'll answer both. So if you feel like you're too young, then it's a prime time to make mistakes. It's a prime time to fail forward, and age really works in your favor that way. If you feel like you're too old, there is a lot of wisdom that you are bringing to the table that no one I know is in business because they don't want to help someone. So if you have wisdom, and do you know what, as women, we and one of the reasons why I like hanging out with you guys is one of the things as women out in the world, we are expected to disappear the older we get. We're expected to shrink. We're expected to fade into the background. And actually, we as women, and for those of you that have kids, as matriarchs, become actually more powerful. If we go back and look at our ancestors, the women of the tribe were actually the people that knew all the medicine stuff because they tried and tested it. They were the rememberers of everything. They were the midwives. They brought people into the world. They were the strongest members of the communities. They were the one that told the stories. They were the teachers. And actually, in your age, you have wisdom. And you also, I think once you get kind of 35 plus, you get this kind of I don't give a fuckness about you. It's very, very attractive to people that do business, that you don't care as much what people think, or you've made loads of mistakes already, so actually you've got huge value to share with the people that come across, so they don't have to make those mistakes. I don't know what business that you're in, Fiona. You're 58, so feeling like you're too old to start something, if you don't start it, you'll regret it. It wouldn't have mattered whether you did or you didn't anyway. You might as well just start and give it a blast. Loads of people only got into like acting or business when they were, look at Levi Roots. He was, I think he was into his 40s, 50s before.
Isn't it the average age people start their own business is about 43, 44? Something?
Yeah,
it's not,
you know, working for other people.
It's not young.
Definitely for women, it's a bit older as well, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's often this gap. You've raised your children, and then they've grown up, and they've flown the nest, so to speak. And then there's this space and time and wisdom sat there.
Mum's thinking about what to launch something, and she's 17 next year, but she's bored and she wants to do stuff. So
Molly's incredible.
And she knows age doesn't matter. She knows a lot.
She'd be amazing.
So yeah. What about you, Irene? We can see your face.
I am 48 and I've only just started last year. So yes, I'm in the same boat.
Love it.
I've been, I was in a career for 20 years, and then my husband died, and then I thought, what's this all about? And I thought, I'm going to live my best life from now on, and therefore I just started
Irene.
my own business. Irene. That's why I'm really vibing with you, Dani. Just want to get on and do stuff.
I love it. And it is really never ever too late. Bloody hell, look at Captain Tom making singles at 100 years old. Come on now.
Exactly. There's no excuse for anyone now.
Yeah.
What's your business, Irene?
I'm a well-being coach, so I do that, and I'm also a support tutor for a barefoot coaching company. So helping people based on my experience, I just help people to
you're a people person in the
transition, and just help them to find what their values and beliefs are, so they can make the next bold step for themselves.
Amazing.
Love it. Get Dani's book. It's really good. Anyway,
I love it. I was just selling my book for me. Like, you can buy my book from Amazon. It's called I Am the Queen Bee.
I love the title too. I want to be a queen bee.
You are a queen bee. This is the thing. Like, the idea is that everybody that I come across, if I'm saying I am the queen bee, but actually it's permission. Like you're like, you already are. It's just as reclaiming it. It's
I love the did you tell the story? I can't remember.
Bees.
Of why you're all bees. I love the story.
So I was telling you my story about being homeless, coming through the other side of it and all of that, and a few years later, it's 2007-ish, 2008, there's a film that came out called The Bee Movie, and a few years after that I was watching it with my kids, and there's this quote at the start, and it goes, aerodynamically, bees shouldn't be able to fly. Its little wings should not get its fat little body off the ground. And the bee, however, doesn't care what humans think is impossible. The bee flies anyway. And I was like, that's the one. That is, but this is it. So then I wanted to create a movement where we get to choose to fly anyway. Like if I got told that I couldn't do things, and I decided I'm not going to get the fucking memo anymore about this. I don't want the memo. You keep your memo about me not being able to do stuff.
Or you're
I'm off
too
flying
old.
anyway.
That's the memo.
Yeah,
memo.
don't get it. Don't receive it. Send it back. It's not your memo, babes. Like, you get to choose to fly anyway. Your reactions and your actions dictate your outcomes in any given situation. So if you've got a business you want to start, go rip it up. Do the thing. Fly anyway.
Yale. Is it Yale? I don't know. I always mess up pronunciations. You're in now. Are you in there? I don't know.
Quietly watching in the background.
If you've got any questions or want to join. Does anyone else have any questions before we end this? Or you can basically get hold of Dani on pretty much every kind of social media possible.
Yeah, it's the Queen Bee Dani across the board.
We'll put this up and send out tip sheets, and or come. We've got the Sistr coffee morning that is at 10 a.m. every Thursday, obviously on Zoom at the moment. So if any of you want to join, that's quite fun. It's a bit like this, really. Loads of women just talking crap with a little bit of business chat thrown in the mix.
In for good measure. But that's where the best relationships are made, isn't it? That's where the best collaborations happen and all of that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Cool. Well, Gina, thank you so much, Dani.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for coming.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye.